Awesome. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to AI at UAGC, a day of exploration, practice, and learning. I want to start by taking a moment to acknowledge what a big deal it is that we're all here. It's October 15th, 2025. AI isn't new anymore, but the work of understanding it, integrating it, and shaping it into something that truly serves our mission, that work is only just beginning. And that's what this day is all about. Across the country, institutions are scrambling. They're rushing to adopt tools, they're publishing half-baked policies, and they're chasing headlines. But at UAGC, we've chosen a different path, one grounded in listening, planning, and building something sustainable. Today represents a shift, a moment where we move from scattered experimentation to intentional shared growth. As we work to think about what this day would look like, we engage in conversations across the university with colleges and departments, with operations teams, and with individuals, navigating this moment in real time because everyone, from faculty to advisors to IT and student services, everyone has a stake in what AI means for how we work and serve our learners. Those questions, concerns, and insights that we surfaced directly shape the structure of our approach. We knew from the beginning that a day like this, upskilling, couldn't just be about checking a box or rushing to catch up. We needed to build something that aligned with our culture, something intentional, something that respected people's time and experience, and something that could serve as a meaningful starting point for the deeper work ahead. That meant curating thoughtfully, not just collecting resources. It meant partnering wisely, like with Harvard's Digital Data Design Institute, to bring in expertise that complements our own. We're lucky to have a few representatives from D-Cubed here with us, and you'll hear from their institute director, Dr. Jen Stave, in just a few minutes. It also meant creating space, not just for content, but for reflection, for conversation, and for growth. And that kind of effort takes a team. So I want to just take a moment to recognize some of the people who have helped make this day possible. From the start, Gary Packard and Blake Naughton, both of whom you're going to hear from today, offered not just support, but vision. You all know this. Every conversation I had with them made it clear that they understood the value of this work and believed in the importance of doing it right. Morgan Johnson has been a true guiding star for me, helping shape this initiative in ways that were both strategic and practical, pushing my thinking, grounding it when needed, and always making it better. I also appreciate that she wakes up as early as I do, so I can get her early. I'm especially grateful to Teresa Kirk for her steady support and for lending me a rock star team. Jackie Bullis, Shauna Brown, and Jen Graves have been at the heart of the logistics, communication, and coordination that has brought all this to life. Even more than that, they've been really sharp collaborators and generous thinkers, helping to ensure that this day feels intentional, welcoming, and genuinely useful for all of us, just no matter what role we're in. Thanks also to all of our college and unit leaders who made time to be part of this day and made time for their faculty and staff teams to be here too. Your support signals how much this work matters. So every part of this day, from the welcome session that we're in now, to the breakout rooms later on at the closing, and to the quiet space for independent learning that we're going to kick off in a little bit here, all of it was crafted with care and with a long view. I've said this before, this isn't really about training. It's not just about one day. We're calling today AI at UAGC, but that name carries further. It represents a growing body of work, a mindset, a movement, maybe. It's the banner under which we're building infrastructure, developing resources, and creating new pathways for every member of our community to engage with AI in ways that are meaningful, sustainable, and distinctly UAGC. So starting today, right now, we're not just reporting from the front lines of a culture shift, we're helping lead it. And I'm grateful to all of you for showing up, for being curious, and for engaging this moment with courage and care. Grateful, but also proud to be here with you guys. And if it's not too corny, I'll say it, proud to be UAGC. With that, I'll hand it over to Gary.
Thank you so much, Nate. And I echo your thanks for your team and everybody that spent time putting this together, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to open this up and share some thoughts. And I'm going to do that by going back to ancient history in AI experiences, and that's to May of 2023, 2 years back, not even barely, maybe a little more. When I was addressing the commencement ceremony at the University of Arizona for the veterans and military affiliated students graduating that year. And in that commencement talk, if you recall, ChatGPT had become publicly available around November of 2022. By December of 2022 and into January, it had gone viral, garnering more users quicker than popular apps such as TikTok or Instagram. And it became a terror to higher education of what are we going to do with this new technology that all students are already using to quote unquote cheat on their exams and homework and everything else, and how far we were behind. And so I got on ChatGPT and I had it help me write my commencement speech that year as a example of why we in higher education needed to embrace this technology, not be afraid of it. And I won't do the whole speech, but I just want to share with you a snippet from that, where I said, this semester we witnessed the most rapid development of a technological impact on higher education in history with the release of ChatGPT. And I think that was true. I've never seen any technology embrace how we changed and thought about education within a semester as quickly as ChatGPT did when it was launched at the end of the fall semester of 2022. And I said, I think ChatGPT will be the #1 topic at graduation events in the nation this year. And I monitor a few graduation events, and it was a very popular thing for graduation speakers to talk about in May of 2023. And I felt compelled to explain to people at that point in time what ChatGPT was, because not everybody was familiar with what this platform was. So I said, if you're not familiar with ChatGPT, it is an artificial intelligence program that can interact with humans using natural language. It's like having a conversation with a computer program that can understand what you are saying and respond in a way that sounds like a human. Think of it as a digital assistant who can help you with tasks, answer your questions, or just chat with you and I, just like a friend. To demonstrate how this works, this description of ChatGPT was written by ChatGPT at that time. In fact, this graduation address is a collaboration of my new digital assistant, ChatGPT, and me. Since that time, I have embraced it and used it in multiple facets of my life. Probably not as much as I should, but try to play with it almost daily as I work through the day and think about where we're going to go in higher education. And I get a lot of people who tell me they're still afraid of it. They still don't trust it. They still don't believe it's a good idea. To which I share, whether you like it or not, if you watch TV, if you shop for groceries, if you browse the internet, if you have a cell phone, you are using AI to do everything you are doing right now, whether it's Drive, your voice assistant, it personalizes your streaming recommendations on what you're going to watch on TV at night. It's filtering spam from your computer and helping to keep you safer on the internet. It's helping us detect fraud when students are fraudulently, and they aren't students, when people are trying to be students and fraudulently get money from the United States government. It's curating the content on your social media platforms. It's doing things all the time in our life every single day. That's an incredibly rapid revolution. And if you look at how revolutions happen, all of us remember probably from our now we'll go to real ancient history, our history of the industrial revolutions in the world. And the first one being the steam revolution, or the first industrial revolution, lasted about 100 years, actually, before we got the next big technological innovation. That was electricity and mass production that happened in the earlier part of the 20th century. That changed the world. That revolution lasted for about 50 years. The next one that came out was the digital revolution, with digital computing and moving away from analog. In fact, you can see the airplanes. I got to go the right way. See the airplanes on the shelf behind me back there. They started analog and they transformed into digital over my flying career. You know, my first airplane was very analog based. And so that happened over about 30 years. We're in the midst of the fourth industrial revolution, which is very much machine learning, biotech, robotics, those kinds of automation kinds of things. that drive things like ChatGPT and other AI applications. Many are predicting that will last less than 20 years. And we're at almost the end of that revolution as well. So what's the fifth industrial revolution? That's the revolution that's going to affect our students in their workforce. It's going to affect us in our daily living. Most people are predicting that will start sometime as early as this year before the end of this decade. We will see that the fourth AI revolution will be past us and we'll be into the next one. And that one is really a human machine teaming kind of an idea of how now AI and automation becomes personal assistants to us on a regular basis. It almost becomes like that buddy we have next to us, and we just can't live without it. And it's going to drive everything we're going to do, whether it's in your personal life, your private life, your corporate life, your education life. It is going to be there, and it's going to be an essential part of how we do it. So my question to you all as you start this day, and I'm very grateful, Nate, that you and your team have put this together, because we need to be talking about this. And not only that, we need to be doing something about this really quickly. So my question is, as members of Workforce Development Online University work, are you willing and able to move fast enough to catch up to the fourth revolution before the fifth revolution hits us? Because it's coming. It's coming like a freight train. It's actually coming more like a TIE fighter, I think, in Star Wars. It might be the better analogy. It's moving pretty fast, and it's going to be here before we know it. And if we're not ready, we're going to be left behind, so to speak. So the big thing about the change in technology in our day and age is it's not a generational thing. It used to be, 3, 4 generations had the ability to deal with the first industrial revolution. This one will last elementary school length, basically. It's going to be very quick. The technology, if you have children that they're learning today, will be outdated well before they're graduated. The degrees we're preparing students for the workforce will be for jobs that may not exist by the end of this decade. And are we preparing people to be agile and willing to do that? So I hope you'll contemplate those kind of questions over this day when you get into your breakout room, and ask yourself, how are we going to speed up our higher education engagement of AI, our student expectations, our course design, our research, our institutional operations to match the speed of change that our students need to see us adapting to? Nate, you said quite accurately that nationwide, and I'll say worldwide, universities are scrambling. We're still scrambling. We're still trying to catch up. We don't know what to do with it. And so my question I'd like you to ponder is, how do you stop reacting, and how do we start embracing the reality of the world as it's evolving in front of us? I don't think the challenge isn't technological adaptation or adoption. It is, how do we, no kidding, embrace it with our mission, our values, and our activity that we are doing with our students. I'll argue that at UAGC and at Arizona Online, that's part of the University of Arizona, we have an incredibly unique opportunity here to do something with these ideas and to take what you all are talking about and put it into action. We've got to really think about how we can lead, not just react in this world. And I hope you will ponder those kinds of questions. And we need to see AI not as a threat or a checkbox. We need to see it as actually the opportunity that it is to strengthen what we do and embrace it for the future that our students will have to live in. So I'm going to ask you to move with urgency, to move with action, to think of this as, how do we team with machines in a way we've never thought possible to team with machines before, because that's what the reality is. I was just watching some of the news and data from the latest Air Force Association conference, and one of the biggest topics there were the next generation of Air Force fighters are going to be built explicitly to have unpiloted wingmen flying along with them. So they are being designed from scratch to have automated partners flying alongside that airplane. So one pilot, 5 airplanes, imagine that. And that's what automation, that's the reality that students are going to be facing who are going through pilot training or entering into the military today. That's the equipment they will be learning to fly and learning to operate. So this is a sustained journey, but it's a quick one. This is not a marathon, it's a sprint. It's one that we've got to get to, and get to quickly. We're already behind, I'm going to argue, and we need to race to catch up a little bit. So here's my basic question, and I'll finish with this, Nate, for you all to ponder. You mentioned that this is a day of exploration, practice, and learning, which it is. My question for you and my challenge to you is how quickly can you turn it into a day of activation, expertise, and growth, and actually start to put some things into practice. So thanks, Nate, for the opportunity to share a few thoughts, and thank you for putting this together.
Thank you, Gary. I saw what you did there. Challenge, challenge accepted. Hopefully, all of us in the room. That's great framing and great, as you say, urgency from leadership level on down. And I feel like we all feel that desire to make sense of this. And this day is part of how we start. But what we do next is what's really important as well. I'd like to ask our own Blake Naughton to say a few words as well.
Well, that's tough to follow because Gary Packard talked about using AI since 2023. And I swore myself off the stuff and didn't touch it till this year. And I think that might encapsulate a lot of people that joined us today. Some that were early adopters playing in the sandbox and some that were late. And what's funny is that I'm not, I don't think I'm a Luddite. In fact, my first college teaching was teaching C++ at a community college. So I've known how to code. I know a little bit about technology, but that was a system where you learned how to tell a machine what to do and make it do it. And this is an entirely different animal. So Nate, my remarks, I just want to pick up on the word curiosity that you brought to the table, that I hope everyone come together in this space in a space of curiosity, and at different levels about what this can do with our students, what this can do with our practice, what this can do overall with the way that we think about teaching and learning. So I'm excited that you've brought this together in a reflective day. And this is a bit new for UAGC and for any of our partners that have joined us today from main campus or other institutions. It's a new way of thinking where we don't have the presumption of a strategic plan where we have this all thought out and everyone's going to have 6 AI modules in their courses in the next 18 months, and this will be done or whatever like that. Instead, this is coming to a space like a learning organization where we're kind of aligned on that we need to care about how this works for our student learning. We need to care about how to incorporate it into our curriculum because our students are going to encounter this when they graduate in their various workspaces, but we don't quite know how to get there. So that means we've got to pause and experiment. And a key part of that experimentation is what today is about, which is sharing some learning, sharing some ideas, sharing what some of us tried in 2023 and what some of us are just now encountering today. And a big part of that is our partners and networked learning. So I want to thank Dr. Stave very much for coming and joining us today, and our partners from the Harvard D3 for being a part of helping to catalyze a new way of thinking. And as we think about our different networks nationally that I know many of our faculty have been working with about ways that AI is incorporated into our class spaces, I think it's really important that we don't head down and think we need to figure this out alone, that the speed with which Gary has challenged us to incorporate this and to get out of it requires us to scan, to share, to learn, to be really open and transparent, and to allow space for failure. Allow space for us to try some experiment, to see what happened with our students in class space, to determine, whoops, that did not go how I wanted, and to share that learning with each other in a vulnerable way that gets us really as an organization that's going to fast iterate, keep improving, keep providing better and better. And I think the critical part of that is listening to our students, that all this is about what they will say about how these tools are both how they're encountering it in the classroom space and what works and doesn't work for them. And also as they graduate, telling us what we need to know about preparing them for the workforce and incorporating AI technologies in that space. So it's going to be iterative. It's not going to be one and done. It's not going to be clean. We're going to be playing with this. I don't know. I didn't even know we were on wave 4 of AI. Whatever wave we're on, it's just going to keep coming. Like a beach, and those waves just keep hitting, and we're just gonna have to ride the surf in different ways and fall off the board once in a while and get back up. I don't surf, but how is that for a sporty analogy coming from me? That's pretty big stretch for me. So I just want to say again, thank you to everyone for taking the time to be reflective in your practice, taking the time to learn, and know that this is yes, some amount of urgency, because that urgency is providing what we want for our students. And so thank you for your contributions for it. And most of all, Nate, thank you for your leadership and bringing us together and being a fantastic faculty fellow, bringing our community together around where we ought to go in the future. So I look forward to what comes out of today.
Excellent. Thank you. And Blake, you were just saying that we don't know what to do next. We need to think it through. We need to figure it out. I can't think of a better group of people to think this through with than our colleagues here across campus. Really excited for us to start to be able to think together about what that future is going to look like for our university. But in order to establish that baseline, to make sure that we're all starting on the same page, we needed to bring in somebody who was going to help us get there, to establish that benchmark. And I was really excited to kind of stumble across the trainings through the D Cubed Digital Data Design Institute Center. I took them as part of a pilot earlier this summer. I just thought they were amazing. And I've shared this before, in part because they're somewhat agnostic. They are about the tool and the technology and applications of it, but they don't presume to tell us how to teach. They don't tell us how to do our job. We know how to do our job. This really does complement us. And so when I had my first tentative reach outs to D Cubed, I was just really excited to meet such a great group of collaborators and true partners in this. And really excited to have Dr. Jen Stave here with us today, who I think will say a little bit about what's going on over there.
Yes, thank you. So excited to be here. And I'll just speak for a few minutes to provide some context about myself, D Cubed, and our learning modules. First and foremost about myself, I'm a very proud University of Arizona alum. And so I graduated from Eller College of Management in 2007. I've retained my ties to the U of A because my father is still a professor there. He is the chair of the astrophysics department in Tucson, so you can still stop by and say hello to him, although I've since moved on and I did my PhD at American University. And then I actually left academia for over a decade and started in this budding field of data science, which was AI before AI was cool. And so we did things like machine learning. We worked in really data-rich environments where you could use these algorithms to ingest so much more data than humans could ingest. And that was really, really exciting. About July 2022, I started talking to Harvard Business School about starting this new research institute that looks at how industry is using AI to do things differently. And I thought, well, this will be very easy. I've been doing it for a decade. I can easily talk about machine learning and all the algorithms and how companies are using them. So I joined HBS, moved to Boston, started the institute, and then a few months later, generative AI hit. And I said, well, this changes everything. And this is no longer an easy job, but challenge accepted. Just like Nate quickly said, challenge accepted. Let's figure this out. And so what we did at D Cubed is we realized that it is fundamentally different than old school AI. A lot of it, a lot of the best practices and the ways that we think about the technology just no longer apply when you're talking about generative AI. And so we really had to get our hands around what this technology is. And so we very quickly pivoted in just the first few months and said, let's start being essentially the clinical trials arm for generative AI. So assume that AI, and by that I mean generative AI, is a drug that's being introduced into the world, into universities, into classrooms, into companies, into governments. Nobody's done clinical trials. We don't know the efficacy. We don't know the right dosage. We don't know the adverse harm. And so we started running these randomized controlled trials with companies and organizations to understand this data and and not just understand it for the sake of understanding it, but to share it back with the world as a public good so that everyone could take that information and then optimize their own safe usage of it. The funny thing about this analogy is that normally you do the clinical trials before you introduce the drug. But that didn't happen in this case. Everyone's on the drug, everyone's using the drug, and we haven't done the clinical trials. And so we are really disrupting ourselves in academia in order to go fast enough. I think Gary spoke about the need for speed. In order to go fast enough to catch up before too much adverse harm is out there, before too much inefficiency is out there. Because what we're seeing is that there's companies around the world essentially experimenting, and universities as well, experimenting, trying things. If it works, they keep doing it. If it doesn't work, they stop. But we say, how inefficient? If you had just known that another university had tried this and it didn't work and why, you could actually start off on a much better path, optimizing that usage right off the bat. And so we set out with this mission to really fill that void. And of course, part of the output of what we're doing is not just the research, but the public dissemination. And so we realized with academia, I think the last stat I saw was the average time to produce a paper is 7 years from the time you start the article to the time it's published in a peer-reviewed journal. And we said, this simply won't do. We'll be on the 10th wave of AI by then. Like we can't wait 7 years for like our peer review articles to actually make an impact. And so we had to completely rethink what it meant to disseminate information from an academic context, and really upend a lot of the convention. And of course, we are native AI institute ourselves. So I challenged my team and I said, we don't have a lot of headcount. We have to get this information out quickly. You have to figure out how to use AI in a way that is going to help us achieve our mission of telling the world about AI. And they really stepped up to the challenge. And you'll see this platform we're using. It's a company out of Europe, Sana Labs, and we couldn't go with a traditional education vendor because the speed simply wasn't there. And I think we're the first big institutional account in an educational context for this vendor. And we're saying, look, we like this platform because it's AI native and it's going to allow us to go fast. Not only that, but it's going to allow us to update our information because every month new information comes out about what it can do, what it can't do, what it should do, and what it shouldn't do. And we don't want anyone to go through our modules and have information from 6 months ago, which is no longer relevant. So this need for constantly updating information is something we grappled with, and you'll have to grapple with in the classroom as well. But also the speed to market. The last thing I'll say about what we've been seeing is that there's generally three trends that have been pretty consistent and formative in how we think about our work as a research institute, and specifically how generative AI is reshaping the world. One is that we actually, I like the metaphor used earlier in that it's not a marathon, it's a sprint. I would agree with that, and I would add on, and there's no finish line. And so which I'm a runner, and that seems, oh, that's hard. That's really hard to plan for. It used to be with transformations and new technologies, you go from point A to point B, and you say, great, I've learned how to do it. Now I've done it. Let's get back to business as usual. There is no point B anymore. There's no finish line in that sprint. And so people just have to get used to the continuous change that is going to keep happening. And that's a change management muscle that doesn't come naturally to a lot of humans unless you actually focus on building it. And so that, continual change of information and new information about what AI can do is something that we all just need to plan for. Essentially, continuous upskilling that never stops, which, for learners, which I assume this group is all learners, that doesn't sound so bad. Another core principle that we've seen emerge is that one of the reasons that organizations really have a hard time um, grappling with what to do with generative AI is because they don't take a step back and completely rethink their processes, right? They take generative AI and they try to apply it onto what they currently do. And that can help, but when we're looking, especially in a corporate context, when you're looking at increases to top line revenue growth or, major operational cost savings, we're only seeing those occur when the organization actually completely redesigns their process, which means it has almost less to do with the technology and more to do with process engineering. And that's a correlation that's really, really strong right now in all of our different studies. The last thing that I'll say is that it's more and more it's differentiated itself in that it's a technology that requires hands on keyboards. And so I work a lot with executives and in different companies and talk about how to think about generative AI. And these executives are really hesitant to put hands on keyboards and actually work with it themselves. Like Gary mentioned, I picked it up and I started doing it. That's not what I'm seeing with a lot of senior leaders. It's always very impressive when they do, but a lot of senior leaders have always delegated the actual applied learning to their, CTO or to some, analytical person on their team, and that cannot happen with generative AI. Because if you take my previous comment of the need to redesign process, the only way you're going to be able to figure out the strategy, right? To figure out how could we actually do things differently harnessing this is if you actually use it yourself and actually vet it yourself and actually see all of the nuances, which can then spark all this creativity of strategy building and planning. But if you get to the strategy building and planning without the actual hands-on keyboards applied learning, the creativeness of the response is just muted. And so we've really, really pushed on hands-on keyboards. And actually, this very first fundamentals course was our way of every engagement we do in person, we actually have them do some version of this where their hands are on the keyboards, actually working through these interactions with the technology. There's just no better way for learning right now. And so I'm very, very happy to share it with you all. At this and all of the other modules that we have. And I hope it helps inspire you on your journey.
Jen, such great insights. I really appreciate that. It's a little scary. It's a little overwhelming. But again, there's no better people I'd rather be trying to figure this out together with. So you heard what Jen said. We got to get this done by the end of the day. Rethink everything. Uh, okay, maybe not today, but seeing a lot of comments, a lot of questions in the chat. I just want to say that that's what we're here to do today. We're trying to come up with better questions and work our way toward answers. Don't look to me or Blake or Gary or Jen for the answers to these things. Morgan doesn't have them. Teresa doesn't have them. We're all working together to come up with these new processes, new ways of working, new ways of interacting with learners, with our students at every angle and vector of the life cycle of students coming to our university, whether that's through the door talking to an advisor or sitting in a classroom. All of these things are on the table for us to hack into, reassess, redefine, and move forward with. So that's what we're doing here today. I love it. Hands-on keyboards. I'm really excited to push us ahead to the other parts of the day, which I'll just preview a little bit right now. We've been dropping in the chat the link to get you hooked up to the Harvard platform. What you're going to actually find first is a Qualtrics form. They're going to gather a little bit of information from you. You type in there, it's going to redirect you to their platform where you should see the generative AI fundamentals training right there. Click into that, start working on that. While that's happening, I'll be here with a few other people in a Zoom room where you can pop back in, you can ask questions, we can talk about what you're learning, just a way to share the knowledge. I feel really strongly, and this kind of sparks off of something we heard Gary and Blake and Jen all mention, which is that different learners are going to come up with different ideas as they interact with AI. Somebody who deals with students in one way is going to have an insight into this process that I could never have because it's not the way I look at it. It's not the way I think. Unless we share those ideas, unless we surface them, good or bad, right or wrong, we're not going to learn. So we need to learn. We need to get there, and learning together is the way to do it. After that session, where you're all working independently on the generative AI fundamentals, we'll come back together for, I kept calling it a closing session and no one corrected me. It was always just a placeholder. It's more of a reflection session. We've got great breakout room hosts who are going to help us kind of distill our learning and just continue the conversation. To be clear, if you're watching this recording, or if you know you've got something else you need to get to in a few minutes, we have access to this Harvard training through November 14th. I kept saying November 10th just because I thought maybe it would make everyone feel a little bit more urgent in getting this done. But it's actually for a full month, they've given us access to this. So it's a fantastic partnership. Again, they've really allowed us to they've helped us understand what we need, and we've kind of told them where we're coming from. And this has just worked out fabulously well. In addition to that, so Jen was talking about some of the trainings and the public dissemination, but when you go to their website, there's a wealth of other information, different things that they're doing that they've been able to share. I encourage you to spend a lot of time clicking around on their website. And in addition to the trainings they're giving us today, there is a whole wealth of new informations. There are insight newsletters. There's all other things that are going on, which they typically charge a pretty penny for, but they're giving us a massive discount. So if you're interested in continuing your relationship with this platform, big thanks to Jen and everybody on her team who made this happen. They've given us a little bit of a punch card discount ticket to get through the door and take advantage of these resources going forward. Really appreciate the partnership with that too. So with that, I would say click over to the Harvard training, click in, and start taking. Start learning, start growing, start challenging yourself, start coming up with better questions that we can all ask ourselves and try to find some type of potentially only provisional answers as we keep trying to figure out what to do in all of this. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for taking the time to navigate this, to help us figure out what we're going to do. Jen, I'm just going to keep saying thanks. And Charles, I know you're here too. Thanks so much for your work helping this partnership really come to life. Gary, Blake, thank you again for being here and for your framing for all this today. I think it puts us on a good footing to realize we have space, we have institutional support, and now it's on us to make it happen. So thank you all.